About 27 hours away from the 2025 MLB Trade Deadline. What will the Cardinals do? Well, we'll try to figure it out here over the next 20 minutes or so. This is Card Central 365, presented by Gray Bar on STL Sports Central. All content brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. And there you see on the bottom of the screen, Claibs presented by the Painting and Decorating Foundation. Claibs, you finally get out of St. Louis and you head tonight to the much cooler temperatures in San Diego. I'm sure you can't wait to get on that plane and step off of it in SoCal.
Well, yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to it. But as you know me, I don't mind warm weather. I'd rather sweat than freeze and wear 3 or 4 sweaters. I'm miserable. So I'm glad the weather will be different. Hopefully, it'll inspire the Cardinals a little bit more. They're playing against some teams that have something to play for, so this is not going to be easy. But certainly, one less thing to worry about, and that would be the weather.
Absolutely, they end a homestand tonight against the Marlins. But at this point, I think everybody's focus is more on what's going on off the field. I know the games are kind of there as background noise for those 2.5 hours every night. But let me take me through, because you sometimes you will hear things before others do. But at this time of the year, is it constantly looking at your phone, talking to people? Tell me what the next 27 hours looks like from you at your standpoint.
Yeah, for me, it's a combination of talking to players, agents, other people in front offices and other organizations. I really don't have much of a conversation with the Cardinals. I'll be honest about it. They've always played it close to the vest, and I respect that. And so I try and get information from other sources just to kind of be abreast of it. I'm not in here to break news in that regard. I think what we've seen, though, in the last, let's say, 5 years, this thing is way off the tracks with regard to what's real and what isn't. And I know a friend of mine sent me this piece today that was written by someone that said somebody is 90% in on being busy in the trade, market. And I think that's 90% BS. I think that most of the things we hear are things that are concocted by people in our business, agents, teams that are floating things out there to see what the rise will be and see what the price might be without directly going to it. And I think it has a lot to do with just trying to get a feel for it. And I'm sure teams are certainly talking. I mean, teams are in the war room trying to figure out what deal works, looking at medicals, looking at contracts, things of that nature, talking to people in other organizations, what kind of guy we're getting. There's so many intangibles that go into it. But for me, I have probably about 8 to 12 people that I will stay in touch with, kind of look at my phone and see what's popping. And, when the deal happens, it happens, but I remind people that there are a lot of things that go into making a deal other than, well, we like this player over that player and, he would fit well. No, you have to look at other things. You have to look at the contract. You have to look at the medicals. You have to make sure that this person meshes. What is he going to hit against certain teams and certain pitchers? Because now, the teams who think they have a shot, they're looking at what does Philadelphia Dodgers look like? What is Yankees, you pick a team. Well, how do they match up? Because sometimes it comes down to a matchup, a lefty versus righty, or was a guy hit against certain players and certain teams? All those things go into play before somebody pushes the button. And, you go back to the contract and, is it an expiring contract? How many players do you leave available to trade for as far as players to be named later? How do you value your prospects compared to the ones that you're getting in return? There's a lot that goes on compared to just saying we're going to trade yours for ours.
I want to take you back to something you said at the start of that, where you mentioned, teams kind of throwing stuff out there. We saw, was it last Friday, John Heyman, I think, goes out on Twitter and is putting out reports of Nolan Arenado possibly on the Yankees' radar. Maybe Brendan Donovan is somebody that the Yankees are looking at, or maybe Brendan Donovan's on the trade market, and mentions the Yankees with that. And then a few hours later, the Yankees go out and trade for Ryan McMahon, where it almost seemed like it was a situation where John Heyman from time to time might work for a few agents here and there or a few teams here and there. And it was almost a case of, hey, let's float this by somebody prominent in the media and let's see if the Cardinals are interested. Instead of the Yankees calling the Cardinals and saying, hey, what about Mower Arenado? Maybe throwing it out there in the media and seeing, what sticks and what comes from that.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, you use the word prominent. I don't necessarily call that person prominent, but that well-known is what I would say. But you're right.
A lot of followers on Twitter, maybe. A lot of people are going to see that tweet.
Teams follow what certain people say, and they roll it out there because maybe he's rolling it out there to enhance somebody else's situation, to kind of speed up the process. Say, all right, they're talking about going after this guy. You better make a move. So you have those scenarios as well. Listen, on the surface, it may seem on the up and up, but I can guarantee you a lot of this has ulterior motives, whether it's to increase the value of a player, to get a team to get off the pot and make a deal, just to throw a person's name that's out there that maybe they didn't know was the team was going to make available. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. So the surface, we may read it, but I can guarantee you everything that was tweeted out that day had a purpose other than just making sure it was on Twitter.
As the Cardinals get set to play tonight, we will be sure to watch who's giving hugs and who is in the locker room, who is in the lineup as the game gets to be a couple hours away. And as of note, the past two nights, you saw Nolan Arenado out Monday, Brendan Donovan out yesterday, and I'm sure right away a lot of people are wondering what happened with that. How quickly does Ollie kind of just be like, guys, it's just a rest day. Stop asking.
Well, we talk about that. That's a great question. When Ollie runs down the lineup, Ollie will give the reason why he's not playing. Nolan was struggling. He wanted to give him a day. Brendan Donovan hadn't had a day since the All-Star break, and really the All-Star break wasn't even a break for him. That's the reason why you saw those things unfold. Now, I'll tell you something last night that kind of caught my eye is when Steven Matz had pitched and didn't come out for the next inning, and we were just standing there. And remember, the umpire was having some health issues as well. It seemed like the guy they had to get warmed up in a hurry was Kyle Leahy. They had to get him warmed up in a hurry, which I thought, well, maybe they made a deal for Steven Matz and they wanted to get him out of the game. Because it was kind of like it was rushed in how quickly Leahy had to come into the ball game. I thought maybe that might be taking place, but obviously we haven't heard of an announcement to say anything different. And there's some other things that go into play.
Ollie addressed that after the game yesterday. You probably were on the field doing the post-game stuff with that. I think in the locker room last night, he had mentioned there was miscommunication between him and the bullpen last night. And that's why they ended up going it seemed so awkward between Steven Matz and John King in the when they went to him last night. So they didn't have somebody up and ready to go at the time. But no, at that moment too, because it was, he comes out, he starts it, and you're kind of looking at it and you're going, wait, did he just get traded?
Like, yeah, exactly. It happens. It happens, not as much as you might think, but when it does happen, I think we saw it yesterday where Sir Anthony Dominguez, was traded between games. I've seen that happen before. But it's that time of the year, man, where anything is possible right now.
Johan Duran was hugging his catcher in the bullpen yesterday, and everybody thought that meant that he was leaving, but we come to find out it was just bros being bros and just giving each other hugs.
What about out there
for everyone to see?
Was it Wilmer Flores that thought he'd been traded or had been traded in the middle of the game? Remember, he was playing.
In tears. Yeah, he was crying.
Yeah.
Well, that's just Danny Jensen of the Rays. Everybody's reporting he's getting traded.
And he's sitting in the dugout.
And he's hanging in the dugout with Kevin Cash, just hanging out, not leaving. I mean, maybe he had a late flight and just wanted to hang out and watch the game.
It's an awkward situation. And I don't know how they can do anything different about it. It is awkward for everybody. And one of the things as a manager, and this is what Ollie's good at, staying engaged and keeping guys informed.
Mm-hmm.
Not just sitting in the office with the door closed. You know, he'll let a guy know, hey, here's what it's looking like. Just want to give you a heads up. You know, and players appreciate that. You know, and they're on the phone with their agents too. You know, sometimes the agents know, or the last ones to know, but you always want to make sure you have the ability to reach out and see what they hear. So we're all basically saying, what are you hearing? What are you hearing? What do you know? You know,
Well,
so
a smart thing to do if you jump on DraftKings Pick 6 tonight is maybe not go for guys that could get traded. You might lose out on some of those plays. So maybe like a Stephen Kwan, who's right now is rumored to possibly be interested, but have interest from the Dodgers or the Padres. Maybe don't put Stephen Kwan in your DraftKings Pick 6 tonight in case he gets traded before the game, during the game, whatever. But other than that, DraftKings Pick 6 is crazy simple. You just pick more or less on the stat of 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. Also available in Missouri. So don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for smaller payouts. Switch to Pick 6. And right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Clay, sorry, I cut you off there. Yeah,
I got a question. You know, why would somebody want to move Stephen Kwan? I mean, he's one of the best hitters in the game. I mean, the guy has more walks than he has strikeouts. I think he has 2 more strikeouts than he has walks in his career. He gets on base. Is that a
case of the Guardians just blowing it up right now?
Yeah, I guess it is, because Clase, until he got jammed up, was supposedly on the block. Ramirez is going to be there for a while because they just signed him to a long-term deal. But I thought when we played them earlier this year, I'm saying to myself, you know, this is a pretty interesting group of players. There may be 1 or 2 players short from actually having a say-so, especially in the division that they're in. But Kwan, I think, man, let me tell you, I take Stephen Kwan any day of the week.
Yeah.
And, you know, what can he do defensively? He's solid. I mean, I like him a lot. So I hope if Cleveland moves him, they better get a lot for him because he's a really good player. I mean, you know, but I think it goes to this, Joe. He's not going to hit you 25 home runs. And we are fascinated by those guys who can hit the home runs compared to the guys who can get on base at ease. I look at him. We just saw Luis Ariz, another guy who doesn't strike out a lot. Who always finds a way to get on base, you know. And so I think we're getting away from the guys who make small ball what it is. But yeah, if they're going to move him, good luck. I hope he lands in a good spot.
You need guys on base that are going to be on there for those 25 plus home run a year guys. That's you still need them to drive guys in. So as we sit here now, Claibs, and we are going to be STL Sports Central is going to be your home tomorrow for all kinds of trade deadline coverage. We'll be here with you at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, letting you know what's going on, what the latest news and notes are. We'll also have a show right there at deadline time, right around 3:30, 3:45 Central Time, leading right up to the trade deadline at 4, with a lot of people involved in that. If the Cardinals make any of those moves at the deadline, and if any move is made at any point, we'll come your way with Card Central Instant Reaction. So, Claves, as you sit here right now, is there a guy that you are confident enough in saying might not be in that Cardinal dugout Friday night in San Diego?
You know, to be honest with you, I don't. And here's why. There are a lot of things that go into this, and sometimes you might, you know, you might hold on to a guy too long and want too much for him. And while John Mozeliak has made some very good deals in his career, you have to wonder how teams would feel about him, the players, whatever. And, maybe Mo wants to go out with a big haul. And teams are saying, well, wait a minute. Well, why would I want to give you, my top 5 prospect for a guy I'm renting? Why would I want to give you this guy for a guy I'm renting? So I think the only way this gets bigger and better, unless he moves a guy that has control. And there's some guys that we're not even talking about that I think could be on the block. I think they've seen enough of certain people to know whether they're going to be winning players or not. I was talking to a player today, and they were talking about some players on his team. And so he was saying, we have some guys that probably ought to get moved because they accept losing. They don't really it doesn't faze them. And so you have to think about guys that you say, all right, he's a good player, but can we win with him? And so the question is, how many good players on the Cardinals do you think you can win with if you put them in another situation?
Yeah.
And so I think that comes into play. Now, I'm sure they're going to move some players, okay? I don't know what you're going to get in return because the last time we did this, it didn't really wow anybody with regard to what we got back. We got some serviceable players, but nobody who was an actual difference maker. Now you're in a position now where if you're going to make a trade, you're not making a trade just to move a guy. You're making a trade to make sure your team is better in a year, if not 2. So, and I've said this before, if I'm trading with a team, I have to look at how they develop players in their organization. I have to look at how they stack up as far as rankings concerned on my board, not the Baseball America's board or anybody else's, on what we're doing. Now, the challenge with that is we have all new people who are evaluating what players look like now. Because this time next year, this is Chaim Bloom's team with Chaim Bloom's people who may look at things different than what most people did. So there's a lot of moving parts here that we need to take into account before we just start saying, let's move this guy, let's move that guy. And then we're moving them for the sake of moving them to a team that doesn't have the same philosophy or doesn't have the same development history of developing players that we're looking for.
We will have all eyes on the bullpen and all eyes on the Cardinals for the next 24 hours. Claibs, is there a certain guy in the media that you kind of will follow on, or you kind of take their word over others when it comes to social media?
Bob Nightingale, Ken Rosenthal, locally Katie Wu, are people that I certainly subscribe to their fairness, objectivity, and their accuracy. And there's another tier of guys who, they throw enough stuff on the wall that eventually some of it's going to stick. And then you have that faction of guys who are doing their bidding for somebody else, for whether it's an agent, whether it's a team, you have that group of people. So I don't have as much credence in what they say because I know there's an ulterior motive. I think Bob and Ken do a good job in getting it right. And if they're not first, that's okay. But I think we're at a point now, man, where there's so many guys who float things out there just to see if we can get a rise out of it. They might as well be in somebody's basement. That's the same thing's going on. You see all of these items online of these stories that have these bold headlines, and then you look at the name of the person. Who is this? And then you go one page deeper and realize that they have about as much knowledge of this situation as a rosin bag. Okay. And that's where you have to kind of sift through the BS and figure out who actually knows what they're talking about compared to who actually wants this to happen for other reasons. Fantasy, gambling, you name it, has nothing to do with the outcome of the game and the teams. They have their own personal issues. So they have a forum and they use it. And they think that, what they say is gospel when they're just throwing shit on the wall.
Since we started this show, Claibs, we have had one trade in Major League Baseball. It was between the Angels and the Nationals. The Angels and the Nationals, two teams that I would not consider either one of them in the playoff race right now. Angels 4 games back in the AL wild card, 2 games under 500. They acquired Andrew Chafin and Luis Garcia from the Nationals for minor leaguers. So that is the Angels.
I wouldn't be surprised to see those two moving on to somewhere else before the day is over with.
Yeah, I don't know what the take of that, but it should be
that's
noted.
another
Yeah,
thing.
the Angels are closer to a wild card spot right now than the Cardinals, who are 4.5 games back right now as San Diego.
But that's another thing you have to take into account. Maybe there's another team that would like to have one of those guys, but maybe didn't have the pieces. Maybe the Angels did. Hey, do us a favor. If you acquire these guys, we have these guys I know you're interested in. And we like to do a deal with one of those two, if not both of them. So
we'll see. Yeah,
that's another lane you have to think about.
We'll see how it all plays out. Cardinals and Marlins tonight, the finale of this homestand before they head off to San Diego. I don't think I'm going to have a chance to talk to you. I know for sure I'm not going to have a chance to talk to you on the air, most likely, before that Padres series. Are we going to see fireworks in that Padres series over the weekend?
Good question. I would hope so. I mean, I'm being selfish here. I would hope so. But you know what? The thing is, there's so much respect from managers and players on down. Here's the thing. At some point, Wilson's got to go get somebody. All right. You can sit here and get hit 10 more times and you just want to say, well, they're not protecting me. How about this? Why don't you go get somebody? And then that way, everybody knows this is real compared to you just, being out there getting hit.
Matt Holliday suggested that a few weeks ago on the Cats podcast, that at some point you got to go. He's got to go out there and do something about it.
And maybe that'll fire up everybody else. But to sit here and chirp and stare at people, hey, I get it. You don't want to get thrown out of the game. You're trying to be a good teammate, whole 9 yards, and you think your pitchers are going to back you up. Okay, that's not happening right now. So guess what? Somebody's going to hit me, and I'm going to get him. And I might. And if I get there, it's not going to be pretty. And we're going to see how many guys come out of the dugout, the quickest ones who come out of the dugout to make sure they're there for support and maybe pick another guy they might want a piece of. So, I'm hoping. And you know what? Here's the other thing about this. This team needs to come together. They need to have something that galvanizes them, okay? And we haven't had that. And I don't know if that's going to wake a sleeping giant or not. But, man, when you're in one of those things and, there's, you have some feisty people. And I'll start with the managers. They're both feisty. Now, these guys go way back. So I don't expect them to go after each other. Now, they may be upset with how things are going with one of their players or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're going to start a throwing contest, man. At some point, somebody's got to go get somebody. Plain and simple. And if you don't, then you got no beef. You have no grounds to say anything. So we'll see. Not advocating it, but I wouldn't mind. Listen, I'm not stopping anybody from going out there, okay? If I was in the dugout, I wouldn't stop. Let's go. But you also have to do this. You better, when you go out there, you better find a guy that either you can handle or you know him personally and be like, look, we're just going to hold on to each other.
I like this one.
There's a guy.
Graham chimes in here in the comments, Claves. You'll know better than I do. When was the last time a Cardinal charged them out?
That's my point. We don't. We haven't.
Who would have been the last one?
I have no idea. And that's plain truth right there. I can't remember the last time a Cardinal player went to go get somebody. I can't remember the last time somebody decided to go get a Cardinal. You know why? Because Cardinals don't throw at anybody.
I mean, everybody remembers Yachty and Brandon Phillips.
Yeah, but
that was over a decade ago now.
Yeah, but that wasn't even about throwing. That was about something that happened the night before. That wasn't a throwing situation at that time. So you'd have to dig deep to find out the last time somebody really wanted to go with somebody. And I can't remember the last Cardinal who said, I'm going to get somebody. I'm scared of thinking, would it be Reggie Sanders? No, Reggie Sanders was playing with Cincinnati. I can't remember. And we'll have
to ask at the ballpark tonight. Somebody will know that answer. Somebody will know that answer tonight.
But it just doesn't happen.
Right.
And, again, I'm not advocating any violence here, but I'm saying this. That is part of the game. Okay? It's part of the game that while people will not acknowledge it, they have to accept it. It's just like in fighting in hockey. They don't want it, but they have, they can't eliminate it.
You had the dust up a few years ago between Pete Alonso and the Cardinals, where Stubby Clapp took him to the ground.
But that again was not. Was that Nolan? Somebody threw a Nolan Arenado, I believe.
Yeah,
and he chirped, but he didn't go get anybody.
Nolan's charged the mound in Colorado before, but not here.
Yeah, the closest I've seen Nolan get ready to go. Remember when the play at the plate in Cincinnati with Castellanos and Jake Woodford?
Yes,
and that was early in Nolan's tenure in St. Louis, and he was, trying to get in the middle of it, but nothing really happened. But we just don't have those guys, So I'm hoping somebody does something to stand up for their teammates. But it starts. Listen, if it's me, as many times as I've been hit as Wilson Contreras has, I'd say, all right, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm sorry. And if Manny Machado wants a piece of John Jay, then that's fine too.
We'll see how that plays out on Friday. Still a lot to get to before then. Game tonight, trade deadline tomorrow, and we will have all of that right here on STL Sports Central. This has been another episode of Card Central 365. Here, Claibs on KMOX tonight as part of the broadcast for the Cardinals and Marlins, 6:45 start time for that one. And we will be back again tonight for the post-game show, and then multiple shows tomorrow for the trade deadline. He is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been STL Sports Central's edition of Card Central 365. All content brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.